Welcome back, Mets fans, to a bonus episode. We have some breaking news as late last night, the Mets finalized a trade with the Milwaukee Brewers to get Freddie Peralta and Tobias Myers from the Brew Crew in exchange for Brandon Sproat and Jet Williams. So all this extra episode is literally just going to be talking about Peralta the whole time, and the addition of Myers and what this means for the Mets going forward, and potentially how the rest of their offseason is going to shake up. Diving right into it, first things first, what a save of this offseason from David Stearns. This offseason started so crappy when you lost Pete, you lost Nimmo, you lost Diaz, you lost McNeil a little bit after the fact. You made some additions, but then you lost McNeil. This was looking like a treacherous offseason. Everything that was going wrong could go wrong, and it didn't seem like there was any light at the end of the tunnel. Then the Mets turn around. They brought in Semien, they brought in Devin Williams, they've brought in Luke Weaver, they've brought in Jorge Polanco, then they brought in Bo Bichette, they've now brought in Freddie Peralta and Tobias Myers. What a save from David Stearns from what started to be an absolute disaster of an offseason. What does this move? Let's talk about first what the Brewers are sending in Peralta and Tobias Myers. First of all, with Tobias Myers, he is not just a throw-in. This is similar to how the Lindor trade shaked out when Carlos Carrasco was part of that trade, and everyone thought he was kind of just a throw-in. And then when you really looked at his numbers and then the way he performed with the Mets, Cookie was not a throw-in in the Lindor trade. And the same thing is with Tobias Myers. He is not a throw-in in this trade. He has been fantastic for the Brewers. He hasn't been up very long, but he's kind of been their Swiss Army knife. He's started games. He's come out of the bullpen. He carved up the Mets in the wild card round in 2024, if we remember, and he's been absolutely phenomenal. If he continues on the track that he's going, I think Tobias Myers is going to be a very key piece to this Mets pitching in 2026 and beyond. I assume he's probably going to start in a bullpen role, be the long man out of the bullpen. And then as time goes on, may make some spot starts here and there if guys get hurt or if guys just need an extra day of rest. Or if they want to go the opener route for a day or something like that. I think Myers is going to be fantastic for the Mets. And he also comes with 5 years of control, which is a fantastic option the Mets have. They have a little bit of stability because with other guys, like with Peralta, it's a 1-year deal. And with some other guys, you don't know what you are going to have to deal with. Now, Freddie Peralta, the Mets got an ace, a true number one. I know I've said that Manaea and Senga are the aces of this staff. I've said Peterson's the ace of this staff. I really like Senga personally with being the ace of the staff. Obviously now with Freddie Peralta, he probably goes to number 2. McLean has that potential, but they get a true bona fide number 1. Freddie Peralta would definitely be at least a number 1, if not number 2, on just about every team in the league. He is that good, and he is a strikeout galore. A lot of people talk about the innings. He doesn't pitch much past the 5th or 6th inning. A lot of that is just the Brewers' style, the way the Brewers go about things. They don't push their starters typically late in the games because of how good their bullpen is. That's how they're able to keep a lot of guys healthy and sustain them for a lot longer period of time. It's just the method of the madness of the way the Milwaukee Brewers do things. So I do think Mendoza will let him run a little bit more. Like, it's not going to be Clay Holmes where after the 5th inning you know what you're getting. So after 5 it's like, all right, let's go to the bullpen. This was a needed addition. This was a much-needed get for the Mets. I'm super pumped that they were able to pull this off for Peralta. The question now is going to be extending him. Obviously, he slides into the top of that rotation. Do you put a Band-Aid on the pitching staff for this year in terms of he's your ace for the year, and then you go all in next year and getting Tarek Skubal in free agency? Or do you think we may not be able to? I don't think money is going to be an issue with Steve Cohen, but if the Mets are like, we don't feel comfortable spending for whatever reason, if the Mets say they don't feel comfortable spending $400 million or whatever it is on Tarek Skubal, do they say, hey, we got a young and exciting guy here that's got a great arm. He's a top of the rotation guy. He's not going to cost nearly as much. Do the Mets go in and get Freddie Peralta? David Stern spoke to the media today, would not speculate on if the Mets were going to explore that option, but reports are that Peralta is open to an extension. I would love for the Mets to extend Peralta. I think that would be a fantastic long-term stability arm in the rotation. He's pitched 200 innings or 200 strikeouts in each of the last 3 years. His innings are steadily starting to be more consistent as long as he stays healthy. A phenomenal get for the Mets. On the flip side, what did the Mets give up? The Mets are sending Jet Williams and Brandon Sproat, just like the rumors we talked about on yesterday's episode. I get Jet Williams. I would have loved if somehow, some way, David Stearns was able to finagle things to not give up Brandon Sproat, because I know how highly the Mets thought of Sproat and Williams. But you have to give to get. And I think trading Sproat was the smart move. Of the trio we talked about before with Sproat, McLean, and Tong, Sproat was the most likely to leave in terms of trade. Obviously, the Brewers wanted Tong, and the Mets shut that down real quick. But with the Mets giving up Sproat and Williams, 2 top 5 prospects in the Mets system, the Brewers were going to have to give more than Freddie Peralta, hence where Tobias Myers comes into this. It was a lot to give up. But, again, you have to give to get. And when you're getting a guy like Freddie Peralta, that it's going to cost you a little bit. Obviously, Carson Benj was the only probably untouchable, and I'm assuming because of the rumors we saw that Tong was in that category as well as being untouchable. I mean, this is a fantastic gift for the Brewers. Jet Williams, his play style, I think will fit in perfectly with the Brewers. Just his scrappiness, his speed, his versatility, I think he will fit in perfectly in that lineup. And Brandon Sproat, I know we didn't see much of him last year, but I think he's going to be a nice piece in that Brewers rotation. And I see this potentially being a trade, one of those very rare trades where both sides win. A win-win trade. We saw it briefly with the Lindor trade, with how good Andres Gimenez was for the Guardians and how good Lindor has been for the Mets. This is another instance where I think this is going to be a win-win trade for both sides. The Brewers are getting 2 young superstars in the making, and the Mets get the ace that they need, and they get another Swiss Army knife bullpen starter that has also got some great upside to him. So I'm just very, very pumped up with the Mets and doing this move. And then comes into the what comes next after Freddie Peralta. Obviously, do you extend him? I don't think that's at the top of the priority list. I would feel a lot better about what the Mets gave up. I understand the Mets had to give up what they did to get him. I would feel a lot better about it if the Mets were able to extend Peralta. If they can't, then it is what it is. I fully expect, if the Mets don't extend Freddie Peralta, I fully expect them to go all in on Tarek Skubal next year. I would like them to extend Peralta. It would just make me feel a little bit better about how much the Mets gave up. But again, it's a game of you got to give to get. And hopefully the Mets can get it done. We're just going to have to get something done. Long term, they have to lock up either Peralta or Skubal to me. I just think that where they are as an organization positioned to win now, with the financial flex that you have with Steve Cohen and the way the roster's built, you have to keep Peralta long term, or you have to go in and get Tarek Skubal long term to me. I think that's what makes the most sense, unless you think, obviously Tong's going to be great. If you think McLean is going to be that guy, I mean, obviously we haven't seen much of either of Tong or McLean, but if you think that McLean is going to be that top-end, next Jacob deGrom type guy, then maybe you end up with neither, but I think you have to keep one of the two between Peralta or going to get Tarek Skubal. What we know also for at least this year from Peralta in the clubhouse, Peralta's a big goofball. in a good way. What we've seen on social media, his interaction with the team staff, with the players, inviting his team to dinners after afternoon games. He's got a big personality. He's a big goofball. He's going to fit in awesome with this team. The Mets need that kind of energy in the clubhouse, and I think that is going to help a lot with maybe ease some of any tension that's lingering from last year's team, if that's the case, with all the rumors that we've heard. But this was just a slam dunk home run move for the Mets. And where do they go from here? In my opinion, I think the Mets are done. I think that they've addressed every need that they've needed to. They've fixed up the defense a little bit. I know people are questioning Bichette and Polanco playing new positions, but I feel a lot better offensively from top to bottom. It's not as top heavy as it was last year. And then last year, 1 through 4.5, you felt good about. The bottom was, I think this lineup has lengthened a lot, and it's more balanced 1 through 9. There's not as much question marks as there was last year. The rotation right now is shaping up in some order of Peralta, Minaya, Senga, Peterson, Holmes, McLean, and Tong. I think Christian Scott's going to start either in the bullpen or in AAA, same with Tong. So you could have the option of a 6-man rotation. Maybe that'll help with the health of guys like Minaya and Senga. It'll help the innings with Peterson and Clay Holmes if that's an issue for you. So you could run a 6-man option, or do you put Clay Holmes back in the bullpen, but you're paying him starter money? So it's a good problem to have. The Mets have added a lot of depth in the pitching department. The bullpen is shaping up and starting to round out a lot nicer. With A.J. Minter coming back and the addition of Weaver and Luke Williams, you're back 4 guys. Obviously, there's no Reed Garrett. You're back 4 guys. You have Brooks Raley, you have Luke Weaver, Devin Williams, and you have A.J. Minter. Obviously, if Reed Garrett is in there, that's another difference maker, but you do have Brazoban. So the bullpen is starting to shape out a lot nicer. And then the position players you need Alvarez to take that next step. You need Beatty as your utility guy. You need a bounce back year from Vientos. The only question mark really I have in this lineup is left field. And the only reason I say that is because obviously Luis Robert is going in center and Soto's in right. In left field, right now it's penciled in as Benj, but if Benj obviously has a bad spring, doesn't make the team out of spring training or something like that, Tyrone Taylor's going to be in left field. I'm okay with that, with Tyrone Taylor. I don't have a problem with Benj being in left field. The Mets think very highly of Carson Benj, and so do a lot of Mets fans, and so does myself. Benj is supposed to be the next superstar guy coming up from the Mets system. But that also comes with a lot of pressure, and there is the very real possibility that Benj doesn't live up to that. And I don't think that'll be the case, but you do have to play the what-if game. If Benj doesn't work out, you do have Tyrone Taylor as an option in left field. Do you feel the best about that? Defensively, yes, because Tyrone Taylor is a fantastic defensive outfielder. On the bases, he's fast. Offensively, he's inconsistent, frankly. I mean, he's had his clutch moments with the Mets. It's just been inconsistent. He's gone through stretches where he's been clutch and he's been really good, and then he's had stretches at the plate where he's just been awful. But that's also every single major leaguer, so it's not exclusive to Tyrone Taylor. That may be the only small question mark, but also with Bellinger going back to the Yankees and obviously Tucker with the Dodgers, unless the Mets want to add another bat or add another piece, I don't think they will. I think they're done. I'm getting a little greedy. I would love if the Mets would bring back Starling Marte as a bench role, maybe get some DH starts from time to time. His influence with Juan Soto, I just think that it would be great for the Mets to maybe give a 1 or 2 year really cheap deal to Marte. Marte is on the tail end of his career. So if the Mets are like, hey, we know you're near the end. We know how much you mean to this team. Let's give you 1 or 2 years, finish out your career here. But this is your role. You're going to be a bench bat. You may get some starts at DH from time to time, and that's pretty much it. I'm okay with that. I would love for the Mets to do that, but again, that might be me getting a little greedy. Generally speaking, obviously, if a move works, the Mets will do it, but I do think the Mets in large part are done for the offseason. And what started as a dreadful offseason has turned into a very successful one. I guess this is just a textbook definition of trust in the process, even though that at the way the offseason started, that seemed impossible. But the addition of Freddie Peralta, along with the other moves the Mets have made, has really just put the cherry on top. Honestly, I think if the Mets just got Bichette, Robert, and Freddie Peralta like they have, that would have still been a good offseason. But I think it's even better with the additions of also Semien and Polanco and Luke Weaver and Devin Williams. I think those are it's just been a great turnaround based on how the offseason started. Now, when it comes to the Mets' performance, I think obviously even without the Freddie Peralta addition, the Mets were, in my opinion, in a wild card contention. I think the division would have been a little tough just because the Braves would be back healthy and the Phillies are the Phillies. I do think the Mets are right on the Phillies' butt, if not the favorites to win the division. Phillies fans are very pissed at Bo Bichette for some reason. Even though Bo Bichette was never a Philly, and I know the Mets swooped in and took him, but Phillies fans are all like, "Oh, we'll see you at the bank." This is just like Juan Soto 2.0. Yankees fans with Juan Soto. You got Juan Soto 2.0. Like, what are we doing? He was there for 1 year. He left, and you guys are all mad. Bo Bichette wasn't even a Philly for not even a second. And Phillies fans are also like, "We'll see you at the bank. Can't believe this guy. He sucks, blah, blah, blah." But that's just the way the Phillies fans, that's how Phillies fans are. So, not put too much stock into it, but I do think it's still good. It's going to be a 3-horse race. The Braves are going to be fully healthy, so I think that will make them a lot better this year. And the Phillies, again, that's just too good of a team. I know losing Suarez may hurt them, but they still you do have some question marks with Wheeler, but you also have Nola there. You still have Jesus Luzardo. You still have Christopher Sanchez. So there is some oomph on that Phillies team. But that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this. Kind of just talking over quickly the Freddie Peralta trade. Super pumped. A fantastic move for the Mets. And obviously this is probably it for them for the offseason, but you never know. Fantastic addition. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Make sure you follow on TikTok and Twitter. We will see you guys next week. We'll kind of do a grading of the Mets offseason, who's in, who's out, and start slowly trickling to some season previews as things start to dwindle down into spring training. So thank you for tuning into this bonus episode, and let's go Mets.